A key individual amongst the Parshanim of the Chumash was Rabbi Ovadia ben Yaakov SEFORNO. Rabbi Ovadia was born, lived, and died in what is now known as Italy, a biblical commentator, philosopher, physician, and died in 1550 in Bologna. His commentary to Shemot 25:2 can be applied to answer the two questions that had been raised in the SICHAH with respect to Rashi's commentary to the words Vayikchu li Truma. According to a surface reading of the Pasuk, the Vayikchu related to the Bnei Yisrael of this Pasuk. In other words, Moshe is told to V'daber el Bnei Yisrael that Vayikchu li Truma, that they, the Bnei Yisrael, the nation as a whole, should take a Truma for me. The SEFORNO argues that the Vayikchu refers not to the Bnei Yisrael, the people, but rather to those who had been appointed to be the collector of various offerings donated by the people. In the words of the SEFORNO, Daber el Bnei Yisrael v'yikchu li truma, he writes, Emor li Yisrael, inform the nation as a whole, shechafatzti shehagabayim, that my wishes are that the gabayim, the appointed officials, yigbu ba'adi truma, should collect on my behalf the truma offering. Under the heading of Me'et Kol Ish, he goes on to write, Ke'inyan shemamashki'in al hatzdaka, in light of the fact that they had the right, as collectors of the various taxes, to seize property in lieu of those unpaid taxes. Nevertheless, with respect to this truma, tziva shelo yigbo bizroya, they were to be commanded that they should not take this truma by force, but rather yigbu min hamitnadavim bilvad, collect the truma only from those who willingly donate towards the building of the Mishkan. With the SEFORNO's approach, we might also wish to respond to a textual difficulty, in that the statement Tikchu et Trumati is superfluous. The text has stated that Vayikchu li Truma me'et kol ish asher yidbenu lidbo. According to the SEFORNO, there are two parts to this pasuk. In the first stanza, we have information as to who should be responsible for the collection of the Truma, whereas in the second stanza, the pasuk is providing us with information as to how that Truma offering was to be collected. With this, we can also respond to the textual anomaly regarding the use of the word Vayikchu with a lamed kuf chet shoresh, which translates as taking. The problem with this phrasing is it should have been Vayitnu li Truma, nun taf nun, that they should give me that Truma offering. This question is valid on the assumption that the subject of the Vayikchu was the Bnei Yisrael, and God is asking them to give of their possessions a Truma offering for the making of the Mishkan. According to the SEFORNO, though, the Vayikchu refers to appointed officials, the Gabayim, who were to collect the Truma offering, li, on my behalf, my referring to God. A second issue that was raised was what seems to be a conflict between the Rebbe's understanding of Rashi's commentary, li lishmi, that a contribution lacking in the L'Shem Shamayim is invalid. This was based upon the inclusion of the words Vayikchu and Truma into the heading of Rashi, which seems to conflict with the position of the Mishnah in Shkalim, that the Shulchanot, the Gabayim, deputized to collect the various offerings, hitchilu lemashkein, had the right to go in to a person's home and seize a mashkein, the person's property, in lieu of payment of the various Trumot and Maisrot, including the Machzit HaShekel, which seems to suggest that the offering made under duress on account of the seizure of property is nevertheless a valid offering. With the commentary of the SEFORNO, this conflict can be resolved. The Vayikchu refers not to the people but to the appointed officials, the collectors of taxes, and that the Vayikchu li is not informing us that a contribution lacking in the Lishmi is invalid, referring to the contribution of the Bnei Yisrael, but rather with the subject of the Vayikchu as the tax collectors, the pasuk is informing us that the intent of the officials in forcing the people to donate must be lishmi, without ulterior motives. And assuming they had the right intent, they also had the right to enter and seize property in lieu of payment for the various obligatory contributions. And with this I bring to a conclusion my understanding of the SICHAH recorded in the Likutei Sichot volume 16, albeit a condensed version of a rather complex pilpul on the subject.